Pinkertons, Chapter 4. Cynthia was the only daughter, the only child, in fact, of Hector and Anne Fleuret. The Fleurets were French guinea pigs, and they made their living as picture framers. The Fleurets were a close-knit family. A family? Yes, but a dynasty might be a better term. The Fleurets were famous for their beautiful designs throughout France, throughout Europe, and even beyond. For the Fleuret factory never produced standardised box-like frames with 4 sides and 4 corners, the sort of thing you might have hanging on your walls at home. Oh no. Nor did they vary the frames only in terms of dimensions, colour, materials and mounts, as the best skilled picture framers here do. No. In the Fleuret factory, each frame was truly and totally unique, with its shape and basic decorations carefully considered, designed and crafted before the final painstaking and time-consuming processes began, those of lovingly applying gilding, followed by the addition of ribbons, buttons, dried flowers, acorns, seeds, and so on and so forth. The workers in the Fleuret factory, not unjustly, took a huge amount of pride in their work. Perhaps to comprehend the extent of the care they took over each frame, it would be useful to espouse to you, dear reader, a little of their underpinning philosophy. They did not regard the frame as purely complementary to the picture therein, nor even as its completion, its finishing touch. Instead, rightly or wrongly, they regarded each frame as a work of art in its own right. This approach had led on more than one occasion to complaints from disgruntled artists. These complaints were mostly from exuberant and vocal Parisian painters, who twirled their moustaches around their small pink paws. The painters bemoaned, in voices that were mostly husky, but occasionally lapped into high-pitched squeals, how their latest compositions, their masterpieces, had been ruined, dwarfed as they had been by the extravagant handiwork of the Fleuret factory artisans. But, despite these occasional setbacks, for the most part, trade was brisk and life was happy. Each Fleuret framer, as they were affectionately known in the trade, was encouraged to develop his or her own style, and so the resultant factory output was varied in the extreme. One particular love-lorn youth, who had not been with the company very long, and whose style, it was sincerely hoped, might mature with time, insisted on producing sentimental heart-shaped frames gilded in gold. Others crafted frames bedecked with tiny guinea pig-shaped mirrors and miniature rubies. Others made intricately carved woodland scenes. Some produced clover-shaped frames, and still others festooned their designs with miniature corn on the cob, these being carved in relief, with each kernel carefully daubed in gold leaf to catch the light. Cynthia, despite being brought up in such a family, and despite being very proud of the achievements of her parents and grandparents, and great-grandparents before them, had harboured no ambition whatsoever to enter into the family business herself. She had announced this decision to her parents at an early age, and although perhaps Hector and Anne Fleuret may have been mildly disappointed at their daughter's pronouncement, they did not try to force the issue. Their main hope, like that of any parent, was that their daughter would be happy, and they had no desire to subject their daughter to a life devoted to an industry in which she had no real interest. So when, on finishing school, Cynthia announced her intention to go travelling abroad. Hector and Anne offered only encouragement, whilst reassuring their daughter that there would always be a home for her and a job, should she wish it, back in France. Cynthia had set sail the following week on the popular steamer Ship a Hay, and had soon arrived on the other side of the channel, whereupon she took it upon herself to find employment suited to a young, elegant French guinea pig sophisticate, the daughter of a couple of picture-framing magnates, the future heiress of a small fortune. Finding none such work forthcoming, she fell back on her horticultural skills to provide her with a living, for Cynthia was keen to try to stand on her own four paws rather than to live solely on the generosity of her parents. The young Cynthia Florette was gifted in the cultivation of the soil. From an early age, Cynthia had loved to plant seeds and watch them grow. She enjoyed being outside, and she didn't mind too much if her paws got a little dirty. In fact, she rather liked the feel of soil on her paws. In the evenings, though, she still enjoyed donning a dress and patent shoes and her special little silver necklace. This last had been her mother's parting gift to her, given as they had affectionately rubbed noses on the dock before Cynthia had boarded the boat bound for Britain. The necklace was a plain, simple chain with one tiny charm, an image of a hay bale inside a miniature picture frame. So Cynthia spent that first summer in Britain in a series of temporary, rather humble jobs. She mainly worked as a hired hand, helping farmers and gardeners. At her various workplaces, it was not only fellow guinea pigs that she met. She also tried her paw at a number of jobs where her co-workers were humans. She was mostly pretty lucky with her employers and colleagues, although a few of them were slightly sulky, uncommunicative, work-weary folk who were a little bemused at working alongside an enthusiastic and industrious French rodent. But Cynthia continued to work hard and to work cheerfully, and although she encountered one or two problems, fruit picking from tall raspberry canes, for example, was somewhat problematic due to her small stature. In the main, she got along with both her co-workers and the work itself well enough. It was during a stint working in Devon that she first met Claude Pinkerton. Their first date, eagerly arranged, was a somewhat unsatisfactory outing together to the local branch of the popcorning Disco Palace. Neither of them enjoyed this much because the loud music prevented any meaningful conversation between the two. This date was followed, in subsequent weeks, by a few more, and these were more successful than the first, and included several meals out together at the alliteratively named and rather jolly Devonian Dandelion Delicious Deli. However, it was one evening in the intimate surroundings of the Café Chicory that things came to a head, with Cynthia and Claude each popping the big question one after the other, because this is how it is done amongst guinea pigs. And this was followed by smiles, coos and gurgles and delighted popcorning all round. Congratulations flooded in immediately from both the proprietors and those at the surrounding food bowls, hay trays and sweet corn nectar sip bottles. The engagement was announced the following day in the Guinea Pig Gazette. Hector and Anne were delighted. Cyril, their son-in-law-to-be, was a jewellery maker, and for the Florettes, this profession did not seem too far removed from their own. This was a trade they felt they could come to understand and appreciate, and this was a guinea pig that they could respect. Far more importantly, of course, Cyril seemed to be a kind guinea pig, and they thought that he would be likely to treat their beloved daughter well. He also had a French-sounding name. What more could they ask for? Over the next few months, preparations were afoot for the wedding. It was mostly Cynthia who engrossed herself in these. Letters seemed to be constantly flying back and forth between Cynthia in Devon and her mother and father in France. Hector took a particular interest in all matters gastronomic, and thus the menu was discussed 10 times, if not 100. Decorations were planned, made, examined and re-examined. Venues were visited and scrutinised. Entertainers were booked. Cyril was busy too. He was making a special wedding gift for his bride-to-be, a little charm cast in bronze in the shape of a clover, which he hoped that Cynthia might like to wear on her necklace alongside the hay bale charm from her mother that she so treasured. Cyril and Cynthia had also been investigating where the two of them might live once they were married. They both thought that the countryside would suit them, somewhere quiet and not too big, somewhere that would be peaceful and ideally beautiful too, a pleasant place for the two of them and a safe place for any children who might come along in the future. Haypepper looked ideal. There was a lovely little house for sale there. It had space enough for a workshop for Cyril and also for a large vegetable plot and flower garden for Cynthia. They told the agent that they would like to take it.